What does it look like to build a trauma-informed church or ministry? I want to begin by giving you a broad overview of 7 areas churches and ministries need to address if they want to become more trauma-informed. In this video, we'll look at the first 3, and in the next video, we'll look at the other 4. Think of these 7 steps as 7 areas of focus. It's kind of like when someone decides they want to get healthy, but to move from aspiration to reality, it takes more than just a general idea. You need to think about things like diet, exercise, sleep, stress, and healthy habits over time. In the same way, becoming trauma-informed is more than a good idea, it requires a strategy. The goal is not to have a perfect plan. The goal is to understand the major areas that need attention so you can begin making wise changes over time. Because trauma-informed ministry is not built through one policy, one class, or one conversation. It's built through many small choices made consistently over time. If your church or ministry wants to move in that direction, here are the first 3 areas that I think you need to address. Number 1, prepare your people to understand why trauma matters. Before you can change policies, procedures, or ministry culture, people need to understand why trauma matters. You need buy-in across the organization, because trauma-informed ministry is not just for pastors and counselors. It involves everyone who interacts with people, and it affects the culture of the whole ministry. So the first step is helping trauma-informed care become a shared value across your church or ministry. This step is about building awareness, buy-in, and shared ownership. Help the people who shape the culture of your ministry understand that trauma is common. It affects how people experience ministry, and it deserves a thoughtful response. Talk about trauma in sermons, in classes, in your volunteer trainings, in staff meetings, in your testimonies and leadership conversations, in written materials like newsletters and bulletins. The goal is to help people see that this is not a niche issue for a few hurting people. Trauma affects many of the people sitting in our churches and ministries every week. The aim is not for everyone to become an expert, but for trauma-informed care to become a shared value across the ministry. And lasting change happens when people understand why this matters and begin to see trauma-informed care as a core value of the organization. The aim is not for everyone to become a trauma expert, but for trauma-informed care to become a shared value across the ministry. And lasting change happens when people understand why this matters and begin to see trauma-informed care as a core value of the organization. Before you can take concrete steps to become more trauma-informed, you need your team to share the value of understanding trauma and responding wisely to the people carrying its effects. Number 2, get training in trauma and trauma-informed ministry. Once people care about the issue, they need practical training. Think through who needs training and start broad. Train staff, elders, ministry leaders, volunteers, small group leaders, children's workers, and others who regularly interact with people. Now, not everyone will need the same level of training, but everyone should have enough training to understand and recognize trauma and respond wisely. Training should include both an understanding of trauma and its long-term effects and basic principles for caring well for people affected by trauma. Without training, even caring people may misread trauma responses, respond in unhelpful ways, or unintentionally communicate shame, pressure, or judgment. People may interpret fear as rebellion, withdrawal as disinterest, emotional overwhelm as immaturity, or difficulty trusting as a spiritual problem. Training helps people slow down, ask better questions, and respond with greater wisdom and care. You can use books, seminars, online courses, local counselors, or outside ministries to help. The goal is not simply to give people more information. The goal is to help people respond with wisdom, compassion, patience, and appropriate boundaries. Over time, you can provide more specific and in-depth training for different ministry roles. Move from awareness to principles to specific practices and ministry approaches, and eventually to broader organizational change. Number 3, review and improve communication. As you begin to understand trauma and its effects and how that should shape ministry, one of the first things it affects is the way that we communicate. Trauma-informed ministries communicate in ways that build safety, trust, clarity, and predictability. For many trauma survivors, unclear communication is not a small thing. It can create confusion, fear, shame, or distrust. That's why clarity is a form of care. Ask questions like, what are we communicating? How are we communicating it? What assumptions are we making? Where might people feel confused, excluded, embarrassed, or unsafe? Review areas like preaching and teaching, announcements and instructions, rules and expectations, websites, forms, written materials, volunteer communication, crisis communication. The goal is to communicate in ways that are clear, complete, and predictable. We want people to know what to expect, understand what's required of them, and know where to go with questions or concerns. Trauma-informed ministries try to reduce unnecessary confusion and remove the need for people to guess. This is especially important when it comes to rules and expectations. Explain what the expectations are, why they exist, and what happens if they're not followed. People shouldn't have to guess what the rules are, whether they'll be enforced consistently, or what will happen if they make a mistake. We want to be clear and truthful without using shame, fear, harshness, or embarrassment as our primary tools for motivating change. Sometimes, people also benefit from a little warning before difficult topics, graphic stories, or emotionally heavy content so they're not caught off guard. Trauma-informed communication is not vague or permissive. We still communicate truth, accountability, expectations, and consequences, but we do it in ways that are honest, clear, and not unnecessarily harsh, shaming, or confusing. Improving communication is often one of the easiest places to start in trauma-informed ministry. You can begin making changes fairly quickly, and those changes often have an immediate impact on how safe, clear, and welcoming your ministry feels. It also helps set the tone for deeper changes that may come later in areas like policies, procedures, environments, and ministry practices. A good first step is to identify 3 to 5 areas where communication could become clearer, more predictable, or more transparent. In the next video, I want to talk about the next 4 areas churches and ministries need to address if they want to become more trauma-informed. We'll talk about response protocols, safer environments and policies, integrity, authenticity, transparency, and the importance of ongoing evaluation and growth. For now, take a moment to think about what it would look like to begin building awareness, training, and clear communication in your church or ministry. And if you're looking for help with that process, visit hopescompanion.org/links to learn more about our basic training and trauma-informed ministry course and other resources. Thanks for watching.